understanding, entitled Engaging Intercultural Communication in the Digital Era. Thursday, the 20th of January, 2022. Before we begin, let me read the rules during this event. To all participants in the Zoom application, use the name and to all participants, wear neat and polite clothes. And all participants in the Zoom application are requested to activate the video and mute the microphone during the seminar. And for participants who do not comply with the rules, the committee will remind 3 times. If after being reminded the participant still does not obey, he or she will be removed from the Zoom room. So participants must fill in the attendance form given by the committee through the Zoom chat room or YouTube comment column. In the discussion session, participant questions are facilitated through the chat room Zoom or YouTube comment column by typing name_question. And I'd like to say thank you to all the participants of joining the virtual Studium Generale today. I hope you can participate this event until the end. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wabarakatuh.
Good morning.
Excellency, Director of Harapan Bangsa University, Dr. Pramesti Dewi, MPhil. The Honorable, the Head of Social Faculty of Harapan Bangsa University, Mr. Alfizi SAMM. The Honorable, the Head of English Education Department, Harapan Bangsa University, Mrs. Tri Pujiani, MPD. The Honorable Mrs. Alison as the speakers today. Good morning, Mrs. Alison.
Good morning, Ibu. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine, Mrs. And the Honorable distinguishes the Director of Boromarojanani College Nursing, Phayao, Thailand, Dr. Tane Blomjai RN, and the Vice Director of Boromarojanani College of Nursing, Phayao, Thailand, Dr. Donata, and the Honorable Ginamiciano Alvarado, PhD, from Arellano University, Pasig City, Philippines, and the Honorable, the lecturers and all the staff Harapan Bangsa University, and respectable ladies and gentlemen, the participants of this event. First of all, let us praise unto our God because His blessing we can gather together without any obstacles. I am Abila Meika, the student of English Education Department, Harapan Bangsa University. I am very pleased to be MC in this event today because as we know that intercultural communication is very important to build a good relation to others. Moreover, we are also in 5.0 society who post with social media. So by joining this virtual event, we can get full of knowledge and insight from the speaker. Today, we have several agendas followed. The first agenda is opening. The second agenda, listening the national anthems. And the third agenda is speech. And the fourth agenda, presentation of the speaker. And the next agenda is discussion session and quiz. And the last agenda is closing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's open this event by reciting Basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
And the second agenda is listening national anthems.
Salam, Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we go to the next agenda, namely speech. The opening speech will be given by the Rector of Harapan Bangsa University, Dr. Pramesti Dewi MKes. The time and screen are yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to each one of you present today.
Good morning.
The respective Dean of Social Sciences Faculty, Bapak Alfizi SAMM, and all the faculty members today. Today's keynote speaker, Alisan Sonofet, PhD. My dear students and all ladies and gentlemen. In this occasion, I would also greet our invited guests, Dr. Tani Glomjai, RN, from Buro Marajonani College of Nursing, Thailand. Dr. Dona, PhD, from Buro Marajonani College of Nursing, Thailand. And Gina Misiano Alvarado, PhD, from Arellano University, Philippines. Hello, Dr. Tani, Dr. Dona, and Gina. How are you doing? Thank you so much for your attendance.
Yes, good morning, and thank you so much that you let me join your program today. It's very interesting. But unfortunately, I'm give vaccinations for Thai people. I can't show my face. Let's admit it. Yes, I'm working with our team to give vaccination, but I will join you by listening to your voice and to your talk. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, the director. I'm Dr. Donapha from Phayao, Thailand. And on behalf of Brom Rajani Phayao, I would like to thank so much for your staff to invite us and our students. We have around 140 students from second and third year. Students will join the conference.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you very much for your attendance. And I would also address my gratitude to English Education Department and the committee for organizing this incredible event. It's an honor for me to welcome you all to the Studium Generale on cross-cultural understanding. Today, we have gathered here to discuss about engaging intercultural communication in the new era. As we all know, that currently we are living in the new era, the era of globalization. By using social media, we can connect to the entire world. We can communicate with many people around the world easily. Considering this phenomenon, it's highly important for us to understand the diversity of culture in the world, especially on how to communicate with people with different culture. This understanding will be very useful to build good relationships, expand network, and open up many opportunities for us. Additionally, the theme of this event is in line with our motto, Mandiri dan Berbudaya. So, I hope after attending this Studium Generale, all participants, especially my students, can be people who uphold the noble culture of our nation anywhere at any time. Well, I think that's all from me. Thank you. And before I close this speech, I will officially open this event. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hereby, Studium Generale on Cross-Cultural Understanding is officially open. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the next agenda, let us take photo together. And to all the participants, please activate the video. The slide 1. Slide 2. And the last slide. Thank you. Now, let's move to the main agenda we have been waiting for, and we will be guided by a moderator. It is now my pleasure to introduce the moderator. Her name is Yanika Putri. Mrs. Nika worked as lecturer since 2010. She has an experience teaching in TOEFL preparation class, English for nursing, English for midwifery, English for computer science, English for nursing, English for informatics, English and English education department, handmaking in culinary, and wire accessories is her other attention to enhance social new skill and implementing it as a subtopic in teaching English and learning experience to her ultimate goal, that is giving an opportunity to cross culture, go to other countries and face new industries with English. In addition, she joins the micro-entrepreneurship organization to shape new behavior and culture, then carry on to young generations. In teaching language, she used unique throughput to gain attention of learners in learning English. One of the examples of today's quotes, we are bad in other people's story. When you fail, try again, because failing is process and success is an evolution. Please welcome Mrs. Nika to guide this main agenda. The time and screen are yours.
Growing and developing together to build a country has become a great ideal that is firmly engrafted in the minds of all the nation's rising generations. Purwokerto, our beloved city, has been inspired part of the history of the founding of prosperous land on the equator. The beauty of nature and the noble of Banyumas culture become the exotic attraction anyone who wants to know it. It has been a long journey for us to accompany the nation's rising generations to learn, build their characteristics, and foster their competencies. We will never be tired to keep struggling and transforming to realize the noble ideals of the sovereignty of our beloved country, Indonesia.
Selamat datang di Universitas Harapan Bangsa.
Tempat kami belajar
mengasah kemampuan
Untuk menjadi ahli di bidang yang kami tekuni.
Harapan Bangsa University is a transformation of Harapan Bangsa Institute of Health Sciences, which was established in 2002 under the auspices of Dwi Puspita Foundation by Mr. Haji Siaruddin Amin. We are committed to carrying out the missions of implementing quality higher education and having spirit of entrepreneurship in order to create human resources who are independent, professional, and culture, conduct research, and serve the community. Harapan Bangsa University has established international cooperation with colleges in various countries such as in Australia, the Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, India, and South Korea. Currently, Harapan Bangsa University has 3 faculties with 13 study programs. Education program at Harapan Bangsa University has been designed to enable the student to understand the disciplines which are taught and to have applicative practice skills supported with the use of digital technology in every study program. Harapan Bangsa University provides qualified and sophisticated facilities to support the students' learning comfort, such as library, computer laboratory, health sciences laboratory, social sciences laboratory, technology-based classroom with video and audio recorder, professional lecturers from various countries and Indonesian prestigious universities, and big opportunity to get scholarship, join student exchange, and join internship program to many countries in the world. Harapan Bangsa University fully support the development of students' interests and talents through various units of students' activities such as sports and arts.
Nama aku Esa. Aku mahasiswa tingkat akhir di Universitas Harapan Bangsa. Aku berasal dari Lampung. Aku kuliah di Universitas Harapan Bangsa. Suasana kampus di sini dari dulu aku semester 1 sampai 6 selalu kondusif ya, selalu asik. Kuliah sangat nyaman banget karena dosennya yang asik, metode pembelajaran menarik. Buat mahasiswa tingkat akhir kayak aku pastinya rajin banget yang namanya ke perpustakaan. Tapi aku betah lama-lama di sana berjam-jam sekalipun karena aku ngerasain nyamannya fasilitas di perpustakaan itu. Wah, itu nggak berasa di perpus ya, dan fasilitas yang sangat oke banget.
Kami dari yayasan akan berupaya semaksimal mungkin memberikan dukungan secara penuh kepada Universitas Harapan Bangsa dalam penyediaan sarana, prasarana, sumber daya manusia, baik staf maupun dosen, agar Universitas Harapan Bangsa dapat mewujudkan visi misinya dengan baik.
Universitas Harapan Bangsa siap mewujudkan cita-cita besar untuk menjadi Center of Excellence perguruan tinggi dalam pengembangan ipteks dan sumber daya manusia yang mandiri dan berbudaya. Kami terus berupaya mengantarkan anak bangsa untuk menjadi lulusan yang profesional dan memiliki semangat kewirausahaan serta mampu bersaing secara global.
Harapan Bangsa University is ready to create graduates who are excellent and characterized, supported with English skills and entrepreneurship, so that they will be ready to be assigned in many strategic positions, both in their work field and entrepreneurship. At Harapan Bangsa University, we create the bright future of the nation.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Our event is about to begin. Thank you very much for preparing yourself to join our seminar today. And good morning to you. The respectable of Rector Harapan Bangsa University, and thank you for your excellent opening speech that enlightening our morning to start this Studium Generale. And my sincere thanks to Dr. Tani, Dr. Donapa, and Dr. Gina, and the honorable all lecturers of English department, and the honorable of all participants of this seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dianika Putri, the moderator of today's seminar, and I'm very pleased to see you here and welcome all of you in the Studium Generale. And today's seminar is about engaging the intercultural communication in the digital era. And ladies and gentlemen, our speaker today is Dr. Alison Sonneveld. She is a senior consultant at RD Consulting and Human Strategy. Alison worked in public service for almost 10 years, including international engagement, strategic policy development, and maritime cooperation. And most recently, Alison was an advisor in Indonesia engagement at the Australian Maritime Safety Authority. Alison also has a long-standing interest in Indonesia and has studied Bahasa Indonesia in Australia at University of Tasmania and University of Gajah Mada. It's in Indonesia. Alison is currently studying translation and interpreting in RMIT University. Before the presentation begins, let me inform how the presentation will be going on. The first, Ibu Alison will be invited to present the material, and after that, there will be question and answer session and followed by conclusion. Now, allow me to welcome the speaker, Dr. Alison Sonneveld, to deliver his presentation. Ibu Alison, the floor and the time is yours.
Thank you very much, Ibu Nike. May I just check? Thank you, everybody, and good morning. I hope you're all well. May I just check that you can hear my audio okay and see my video okay?
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much, terima kasih and matur to Ibu Rektor Dr. Dewi Pramesti, Magister Kesehatan. Thank you very much for your introduction. To Miss Moderator and to Miss Nike, who is my good friend of many years. I would also like to thank all of our guests here who have registered for today, both students and faculty from Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, Japan, and also Australia, I think. Thank you also. Yeah?
Your voice is going to be robot. Can you
Can you hear me now?
Not clear enough.
It's okay.
Maybe it's the filter from the Zoom.
You can hear me now, okay?
No, it was going fine until you started speaking a bit fast.
Okay.
Yep, better now again.
Sebentar. Oh, menghabiskan headphone, yeah?
Now you're okay, Dr. Allison. Now you're okay.
You're doing good. You're doing
right
good.
now.
Good.
It's okay now.
You may use your headphone.
Okay. Just one
Your
moment.
voice is back. Yes, please, you can use it.
Just a minute. Of course, it doesn't want to work when I need it to.
Okay, clear enough.
Can I? That you can hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Fantastic. So as I was saying, thank you very much to Universitas Harapan Bangsa as well. It's very exciting to be here and thank you for the invitation. I will just start sharing my screen.
Please.
I am just working out how to do that. Menurut Zoom, host has disabled participant screen sharing. Fantastic, thank you. Great. May I just check that you can see the screen okay?
Okay, Miss Allison.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Before I begin, I would just like to do what is called in Australia an acknowledgement of country. I would like to begin today by acknowledging the Ngunnawal people, traditional custodians of the land on which I am presenting today, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and future. So I'd just like to explain those words for you. It's called an acknowledgement of country, and it's a practice in Australia of recognising the traditional owners and custodians of the land when there is a meeting or a gathering. I won't read through all of this, but having welcomes to visitors to country has been part of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders cultures for many thousands of years. So even though there may not be fences or visible borders, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander groups had clear boundaries separating their own country from other groups. So they would do an acknowledgement of country in order to grant permission to some visitors and offer safe passage. Now times have changed a little, so this is the new form of protocol for acknowledging the land on which we stand. So today I'm going to talk about myself really quickly before moving on to Australia's population and culture. I'll talk about technology and communication in terms of how it's changed over time. And I'll give you some tips, maybe, hopefully some guidelines on engagement in the digital era. My overall main message to everybody today is that if we're talking about Australian culture, it depends on the individual person and the situation. And I'm happy to talk about that more later on today in question and answer. Kalau ada pertanyaan, ya silakan berkata. You can ask me any questions at any time. I'm happy to use Bahasa Indonesia or
recording in progress
or English. So please just let me know. So as Ms. Mika said, I have a background in international engagement in the Australian Public Service. I've been studying the Indonesian language since I was in primary school through university and to the current day, actually. I'm hoping to develop my skills in translation and interpreting, but I still have some way to go. My background for my PhD is on foreign policy and international relations, where I looked at the politics of Southeast Asia and the Malacca Strait, so Selat Malacca. And that's where the maritime cooperation comes in, including some great years that I recently spent at the Australian Maritime Safety Authority and working with Basarnas, as well as Menhub, in terms of a program called ITSAP, the Indonesia Transport Safety Assistance Package. And I just want to have a disclaimer at the start here today that everything I say are my personal views. I'm not representing Australia. I'm not representing any particular organization. So I'm doing this in a private capacity. And I just want to say that with culture in Australia being very multicultural, this is just my observations. So I may not be 100% right. There are many other views around Australia. But I'm happy to discuss it at any time. Do we have any questions before I keep going? No? Okay. Please interrupt me, or if you would like diterjemahkan dalam bahasa Indonesia, I can. And I will keep going. So just quickly about Australia. The total population is 25.7 million people. This is in 2016 at the last Australian census. There has been an Australian census in 2021, last year, but the full results are not out yet. So this is why I'm going off the 2016 data. On the map you see here, there's major population centres around the coast, particularly where the darker colours in orange and red are located. So very much around Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne. And you can see on the right-hand side, there's Perth in Western Australia. 81% of Australia's population is on the East Coast. So this is including the states, which is Queensland at the top, New South Wales, the Australian Capital Territory, where I am, Victoria, and Tasmania, which is the island at the bottom. I'll talk a bit about, excuse me, cultural diversity. So 67% of Australians were born in Australia, according to the census. 49% of Australians were either born overseas, being a first-generation Australian, or they had one or both parents born overseas, which in English we call like a second-generation Australian. I've put some statistics on the side for you to have a look at later on if you're interested in the regional proportions, but that's more for information. I'd also like to talk about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders in Bahasa Indonesia, the Orang Asli. So that's around about 3% or 2.8%. So there's many languages spoken around Australia. English is definitely the main one by far, around 72.7%. After this, there is Mandarin, Arabic, Cantonese, and Vietnamese. But in fact, you may not know this, but over 300 languages are spoken at home all around Australia. Excuse me. This map here is really interesting for me. I hope you find it interesting as well. There's more than 250 Indigenous languages, including around 800 dialects, so variations of languages in themselves around Australia. And this is the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander regions and groupings based on language. I just want to talk a bit about culture at the moment. So my background being in foreign policy and international relations, when I was studying, like as an academic, my work was very much focused on using evidence and analysing, excuse me, ministerial statements. So culture is a little bit hard for my brain, but it doesn't mean, it's just the way my brain is wired. So the question for me is, how do we measure culture? Because it's a very fluid thing. It's hard to say where one culture starts and stops, especially as our world becomes increasingly interconnected. So the Australian stereotype, which you might see on the right-hand side, is, very much, the buff Australian man. That's Crocodile Dundee, a very famous movie if you want to watch it. So if you think of the Australian stereotype, maybe it's, tourists that go to Bali, or maybe they like a lot of beer and barbecues. That's not necessarily useful anymore. So I put the idea to you that there's no one single Australian culture anymore, but perhaps there's many of them. And based on the topic that Ms. Nika gave me, what is the role of technology and how is this changing? So I'll talk a bit about my own experiences here. I'm sure you're familiar with, technology is becoming increasingly rapid around the world. But for me, is just my personal experience. There's a very slow news cycle when I was, growing up many years ago. So I grew up in Tasmania, which is the island in the south of Australia. So everything was very much based on physical hard copy letters and mail. My intercultural communication at the time was with pen pals. So I had friends overseas in the US, in Africa, and I think in Canada, where, I would write letters and share what I was doing in my life with them. And for television, I had 2 television channels growing up as a child. We had a landline, a telephone, so a telephone with the hard wire. To get your news and your information, we'd all go to libraries, or we would have a set of encyclopedia on the shelf. Everything was print media, so maybe your news cycle, you're getting 1 newspaper a day, or whenever your newspapers and magazines are released. And, growing up with filing, as I used filing systems as an adult, it's very much paper-based. And the picture on the right-hand side is a very popular, a very common telephone that was a payphone used in Australia several decades ago. I think there's not so many anymore. I'll just pause there. Are there any questions at the moment? I'm not able to hear anybody.
Continue.
Oh, yeah.
Questions. That's what I was saying.
I'll keep going. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm sure you see there are reports and international groups putting out findings all the time saying technology is always changing. But in fact, it has been changing for a long time. If you're looking at, the Industrial Revolution, and there's always something new coming out and changing how people interact. I think what's interesting at the moment is that the pace of change is becoming more rapid. The news cycle is very fast. We have news at our fingertips, on our phones, and we can, if something happens, we find out instantly. When I was doing uni, this was called the CNN effect, because what it means for, if you're an official or a politician or working in government, something happens and you immediately have to respond and have a position on it. Maybe in the past you had some time because things would be communicated by post, or by access to a landline telephone. So it's very, very much faster, and there's so much more information. We now have smartphones that can do everything that we want under the sun. I can log into my lectures online. I can talk to all of my teammates. I can, you know, do all the email and social media and everything. With online learning, I found that it's really exploded, particularly in the last couple of years. Unfortunately, as a result of the COVID pandemic that's currently affecting the world, but I have noticed that there's much more online and distant opportunities, which are quite interesting. For example, I have long wanted to study interpreting and translation for Indonesian into English, but it's been very difficult to find universities that offer it. And in my previous job at ANSA, every time I would go to Jakarta, I would do some Googling, and I'd see on the Universitas Indonesia website that there would be a seminar and you had to be there in person, and the dates never matched up for me. So I was very sad that I couldn't be there in person and, you know, start learning a bit about, you know, improving my Bahasa and how to translate things. What's happened now in the last year or two is that these are now all online. So I'm very excited to hopefully apply for some online learning and do some of these lectures online. My studies with RMIT University as well have become more accessible and more online. And yeah, all you need is a computer. I've been very fortunate to study with some language schools around Indonesia, including Universitas Gadjah Mada, so the department called INCULS. That was back in 2007. But I've also studied with some companies in Jakarta using Zoom or Skype, and also with Bali, because I've wanted to learn some dialects and Balinese and some Javanese, and I have to say my language is pretty terrible, so I won't try to say anything. COVID is, you know, with your smartphones, we're now doing all the check-in applications, we're getting our vaccination reminders, we can do all of our streaming media on Netflix and YouTube. For international engagement, when I was working in that space, it's even though we would still have the you know, the face-to-face meetings and have, you know, the executive talk to each other, but because we have our smartphones, it was very easy to get my counterparts' mobile number and just do some chatting on WhatsApp to make sure there were no misunderstandings. So when we hold the meeting, it means that everything is already understood and there's no surprises. In Australia, and I imagine this has been similar for many other countries around the Indo-Pacific and from where our guests and faculty are from, there's been a huge increase in how the physical mail has changed over time. Australia Post is the national carrier for postage and parcels and mail, and a few years ago was doing pretty badly in terms of its business model, because people were buying things from eBay and, you know, online shopping, and no one was sending you know, physical letters or postcards anymore. Australia Post has since changed their business model, so it's much more focused on being able to pick up parcels and yeah, changing their shopping model or their business model, and it's doing quite well. So now maybe you have the same kind of situation with your mail carriers, that there's a lot of parcels going around, and unfortunately a few delays with the current health situation. I've had a couple of cool experiences with shopping bots online, and maybe you have too. So a bot, if you're not familiar with the term bot, it's like a very simple program that can be used on online shopping or any kind of customer service function to help customers do things or get some information. And recently I had to send some flowers to a very good friend of mine who lives in Japan. And so I have an Australian Amazon account, but to make it easier, I created an account on the Japanese website. So I don't read Japanese. I have very, very basic understanding of Japanese, but I just opened up, Google Translate, could work out what all the fields were, input my data, created an Amazon Japan account, and I was able to order some flowers, which were, delivered the next day, which was fantastic. And as it happened, I actually got the address wrong because my friend had moved. So I had to use there is a shopping bot, a little chat window on Amazon where I had to go, oh, I'm so sorry, this is the right address, So it actually, I guess in trying to use that function, I tried to use really simple sentences and simple English, and that Amazon bot was able to change the message into Japanese, so the seller could organize the right address. And just last of all, we've got the gig economy, which I'm sure you're familiar with, especially with Gojek and its amazing success in Indonesia and beyond, I think. I'm a bit jealous actually, because we have Uber over here in Australia, but it's really limited to taxis, pretty much transport, and maybe online shopping delivery, I'm not sure. But I've seen with Gojek and other carriers that you can order all sorts of things and get them delivered, and it's a really amazing utilization of technology. So I'll talk about some of my experiences, and again, these are just things that I've noticed, as an Australian doing intercultural communication. First of all, everybody is very friendly. We sometimes have like different clothing styles, so I try to be mindful of that. In Australia, it's very okay to have a singlet top and have shorter skirts and this kind of thing, and that may not be the case for other countries. So it doesn't really mean anything if you're talking to an Australian and they're showing a lot of skin, it's totally fine. It's just a usual kind of thing. The third dot point here on gender. So one of the things, this is more for Indonesian, but it confuses me, or it used to when I first started learning Bahasa Indonesia, is pronouns, because many of them, like dia, mereka, they don't have gender built into them. So it was very hard for me to initially understand or think about what gender, or if a person I was talking to online, if they were male or female. And that's okay, like there's other ways you can tell that, but it's something for me that has stood out. And likewise, I think Indonesian people sometimes have the opposite problem, where they won't know whether to use he or she or they, depending on who you're talking to. So some of this is due to like not being unfamiliar with names, or Australian names or Indonesian names, because it's hard to know about gender. And as an example, my nickname, my nama panggilan, is Ali here in Australia, but in Indonesia, if I say my name is Ali or Ali, Ali is actually a boy's name or a male name, so it gets a bit of a laugh out of people. So these days I just say I'm Alison, so it's okay, but either is okay. For people learning Indonesian as they've just started learning Indonesian, the times of day can be a little confusing, because Australians just tend to use morning and afternoon. But in Indonesia, we have, as you know, we have pagi, we have siang for the middle of the day, sore for late afternoon. So that just takes a bit of thinking about for Australians. So if you're talking to Australians and they get siang and sore confused, they're not doing it deliberately. The great thing is you can use bahasa campur, so a mixture of Indonesian and English, and of course, you know, there are many other combinations of English with regional languages. With our friends in Thailand, Philippines, Japan, there's all sorts of amazing combinations to get our messages across. And one of the things that sometimes has kind of not confused me, but you know, I've had to think a bit more is if I'm listening to someone speaking in Indonesian and there is some English thrown in, sometimes I don't recognize it because I'm trying to listen for the Indonesian words. So, and I wonder, I would be interested to hear from the participants here today in terms of whether you've had similar experiences. So maybe if I drop some bahasa into conversation, you know, is it confusing or is it okay? What else? We've got slang and accents. There's a whole bunch of regional accents, both in Australia, but also regional languages throughout Indonesia, as many of you know, I'm sure. So they're also important to consider. Cats and dogs, very popular in Australia. I think it kind of depends on the person, but you know, I think from what I've seen, cats are more popular in Indonesia. I'm happy to discuss that please tell me if I'm wrong. We've got some language accidents. So Miss Nike asked me to think about some times where there have been I've had language accidents, and we've got a couple. I had to think about something appropriate. So one is my Indonesian teacher, when I was a child studying in maybe high school, she told me, this is her experience, so it's not my story, but she had gone to Indonesia for on a tour, like maybe for a few days to learn Indonesian and meet some people. And you know, everything was fantastic. And at the very end, her hosts asked her, "Oh, how was your stay? You know, how did you find your stay?" And my teacher replied, what she wanted to say was, "Oh, I've been treated like a star, absolute star." But she got the word wrong, unfortunately. And as you know, the word for star is bintang. And in Indonesian, the word for animal, unfortunately, is binatang. And she got the wrong word wrong. So she wanted to say, "Oh, I've been treated like a star," but it came out as "I've been treated like an animal." So I guess we all have those kind of mistakes, which is okay. And it's perfectly all right. And yeah, there's a bit of a story which I can tell you about after if there's interest. But if you look at the image in the top right, that was at an Indonesia-Australia annual meeting in Bali, and we had some karaoke, and that's a picture of me doing an Indonesian pop song, which had some interesting effects. But we'll talk about that one later if you want to know about it. The last stop point here I want to talk about is welcome to country. So I did a welcome to country at the start of the session today and explained it. So that's quite a normal thing if there's any kind of official meeting in Australia, especially government meetings, but anyone can do it at all. And I was going to talk about the national anthem as well. So it was really fantastic, and I was very impressed with the national anthems that Universitas Harapan Bangsa gave for our all of our guests in the different countries today. I just wanted to say, it's if you get some interesting looks or some confused faces from Australians, it's not a normal thing. It doesn't happen that often in Australia. So that's just yeah, it's just a difference, but I think it's a really cool kind of thing. Miss Nika, how are you doing? Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, just wondering about the poor flower that went into the wrong address. You may continue then.
Oh yeah, my friend had moved houses, and because I had sent them something before, it went to the original address because Amazon Japan had it automatically. And I clicked send and went, oh no, it's the wrong address.
Yes,
so
technology helps you to solve the problem.
Yeah, it was really cool because like it just sorted it out so quickly and I didn't have to learn Japanese. So yeah. So let me talk a bit about Australian norms and behaviour. And I just put this awesome picture of some female football players. It's AFLW, it's one of the big sports, or AFL is one of the major sports in Australia. And I just think that's a great picture. So it's not that relevant to norms and behaviour. But my overall message is that if we're talking about behaviour and norms, which is not my area of expertise as like an academic, but as an Australian, I would say it really depends on the person and the situation with who you're talking to. And if you have any questions, I can talk about this later as well. So if we're meeting people and doing introductions, you don't have to be too formal. Most Australians are very relaxed and just, yeah, happy to say hi. So don't be scared about saying hi to Australians. I've noticed that in Indonesia, it's a very common thing to talk, ask, oh, how is your family? Or, where do you work? And these kind of things, which is really fantastic because we all want to get to know each other. Sometimes an Australian might see that as a bit like too many questions too quickly. So it's okay, but sometimes you might get a confused look. They'll be like, why are you asking me so many questions? And if you just explain, oh no, I'm just want to get to know you, it's totally fine. This third dot point is one from my time as a public servant. So Australians like to be on meetings, get to meetings on time, and yeah, that's basically it. Just be on time, and so yeah, if you say something will be at 5 o'clock, usually the Australians will be there, but in general. For shaking hands, Australians love to shake hands, and you might be surprised, we have quite a firm handshake, a very hard grip. And so that's just one to think about. It's okay if you don't want to shake anyone's hand. In preparing for this talk, I asked a few of my international friends, what are things that Australians do that was interesting for you coming here? And one of my friends said that we say sorry a lot, and I didn't know that. Apparently we apologize for a lot. And actually I was thinking about, walking through one of the shopping stalls, the Matahari in Yogyakarta, and I'm always like, oh, excuse me, permisi, and I think people gave me a funny look. So maybe you can tell me, is that common in Indonesia or not? At the same time, Australians are often they might be perceived as saying things very bluntly. It's not a deliberate thing or being, an insult or anything. But my sense is that compared to some other cultures, we can be very, very open and frank, I guess is the word I would use. We also enjoy our personal space, and tattoos, piercings, and that. When I was younger, the tattoos and piercings were not so popular in the 1990s, but it's quite common at the moment. And yeah, no one really bats an eye or considers twice if people walk around with tattoos. Maybe not on the face, they're a bit scary for me, but
Yeah. Hi, sorry to interrupting. I'm curious about one norms in Australia.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? This happens in situations that sometimes when Australians meet with Indonesians, they like to kiss the cheek whether that's a female or male. Is it in there or?
Yeah, that's a really excellent question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it depends on the person. Like, it can be common. Like, so yeah, some Australians love to do that. So maybe if you meet a friend, you get a hug or, you know, a kiss on the cheek.
Yeah.
It depends though. For me, I don't really like it so much, but it's just a personal preference. But yeah, it can be quite it's a usual thing. Say if you know, if a gentleman, you know, meets a female, it can be totally normal to just give them a hug or a kiss on the cheek. But again, it depends on the person and the situation. I don't want to make everyone worried that you're going to get kissed by an Australian, because that's not going to happen.
No. Okay. I would like to give you one chance to participants to ask during the previous slide. Is it okay?
Yeah, of course. I only have a few slides left, so yeah, that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I do have a question.
Yep. Please.
For a while.
Introduce yourself first. Where are you from?
Good morning, Alison. My name is Delano. I actually study and teach at SDKPPTRE Sidoarjo. I'm a Sri Lankan, actually. I've been in Indonesia for the last 6 years. My mom's Australian, so is my sister and my brother. They live in Melbourne. Long story there. I actually teach cross-cultural understanding at my campus as well.
Oh, fantastic.
And one thing a lot of my students have asked me is about, you know, people in Australia, obviously, including my nephew, you're 18, you move out of your house. In Indonesia, they live until they're married. Until then, your mommy's little girl or mommy's little boy. Number two, living together. You know, Australians just live together. You don't have to be married. You can be in a common, what's it called? A common relationship. I don't understand.
De facto.
De facto, yes. Sorry.
Yep.
That's, whereas in Indonesia, you can't even hold hands and walk on the road. It's considered either you're doing something bad or it's just against the law. So what are your views on it, having been in Indonesia and Australia? What do you think about that?
They're really good questions. Thank you, Pak Delano. It's really cool. So you're absolutely right. It's very common to move out of home if you're 18. I did the same thing, but I grew up in a very rural area where, you know, I could only really go up to, you know, senior high school kind of level, and to go to university, I had to move. So that's a pretty common undertaking for young people around Australia. But increasingly, many people are staying at home these days. Like, how do I say it? Like, there's a bit of a housing crisis. You might see that in the politics of Australia, and because of the housing prices and difficulties with inflation and employment, especially during COVID, more and more people are staying at home with mum and dad, which is pretty normal. It just depends on the person, and like if you are living with your parents in Sydney or Melbourne, there's plenty of universities or plenty of employment opportunities and things to do. So there may be no reason to move out, and that's okay. Whereas, for me, and I imagine other people who lived in further away from, you know, where you want to work or where you want to study, like that was just that was the done thing. And you know, I have two sisters, and we all moved out when we were 18. So. Yeah, and your second question on living together without being married, it's very common throughout Australia. So just as a backstory, I met Miss Nike back in 2007 in a course in Yogyakarta, and that was an all-girls course. It was really great living there, and so just to see there's different. It's much less common in Australia to have like all female or all male schools. I think some private schools, usually like high school or college, they might have boarding houses, a bit like a COS, but in general, if you want to go, you know, rent a house, excuse me, like rent a house, and you have a bunch of friends, and some are male, some are female. I mean, it's okay. So, but having said that, that's kind of my experience as, you know, a Caucasian Australian, and I just kind of want to say, like, there's totally other perspectives out there, because, you know, we're increasingly multicultural in Australia. So absolutely, there are people that think that that's not okay. Yeah.
Hey,
Thank you for that.
Thank you for the amazing question, sir. It's 10 minutes left for you, Alison, to finish the presentation.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's a done deal.
Yeah.
What have we done? Okay, I'm going to talk about terms of address, some Australian English, some differences with American, and some digital tools. So I'll do 2 minutes for each one. How about that? I just go back. Okay, so terms of address. So I said earlier, most Aussies are relaxed about terms of address. You don't need to do sir or ma'am or Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones and that kind of thing. And again, like I just said, it depends on the person. Like, different backgrounds may have different expectations about how you call people. Excuse me. It's very common, you know, to have sir and ma'am, you know, in other countries. It's not used very often in Australia. Very often in customer service, or, you know, if you're in a restaurant or in a call center. I probably only use sir or ma'am if it's someone really important or it's a very formal situation. But yeah, interested in other people's thoughts. I'll just skip a few dot points down. So it's very often for children to talk to adults as though, you know, Mr. Smith or Mrs. Smith, if it's like their school teacher or neighbors and this kind of thing. But it's a little bit less polite if you just use Mr. or Mrs. or Miss without their name. So if it's just like, excuse me, Mr., like, it can be a bit rude for Australians. So that's just something to note. Children might use the person's first name for family friends. If it's like, you know, an auntie kind of figure, you might just call them by their first name. In the workplace, so it really depends. But my experience in the last 10 years is that I talk to my colleagues and my bosses by their first name, and there's no need to call them boss or, yeah, Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones or anything like that. And I just had the picture of The Simpsons there because you might remember that Bart always calls his dad Homer by his first name, and Homer hates it. A bit about Australian English quickly. So Australian English is more common with British and New Zealand English. Still the same, like interchangeable with American and Canadian English, but just a few differences. If you really want to know how to do the Australian spellings, there's the Macquarie Dictionary and the Australian Concise Oxford Dictionary. So that's kind of the equivalent of your KBBI, the Kamus Besar Bahasa Indonesia. For Australia and New Zealand, written English is mostly the same, slightly different accents, and you might know how, for our Indonesian viewers, you can kind of see the accent for someone from Bali, where they say, you know, have a sound for words ending in A. So instead of, say, sama, it's sama, or, yeah, Jakarta, or that kind of thing. So there's a similar kind of sound for people who do, for an Australian listening to a New Zealand person, it's the E sound, it's a bit flatter. So instead of fish and chips, it sounds like fush and chops. I'll skip through these bits given the time, but there's a list of words here. There are many, many more, but, you know, there's Australians tend to use particular words and Americans might have different choices. And you see this in like American sitcoms and that kind of thing. There's, yeah, lots of words that have different spelling, that have the same meaning. There's just a couple here, there's many more. And the bottom table here is, yeah, same spelling, different pronunciation. So Americans tend to say Z for the letter Z, letter Z, but Australians tend to use Z. Same with tomato, there's tomato versus tomato. There's a couple here that I just wanted to flag, you know, just to be hutty, a bit careful if you're talking about, you know, a thong, a period, or a fanny pack. To an American person, it's totally fine, but there's just a few unintended meanings that it actually means something different in Australia. And you know, there's lots of similarities between Bahasa Melayu and Bahasa Indonesia, so I think, you know, sometimes we have words that mean different things. Some Australian expressions, I won't go through all of these. If you can get onto Google, you can see all sorts of those, and again, it depends on the person. Like, I use g'day and mate and that kind of thing, but I don't use, oh, what have we got? Yeah, there's plenty that people don't use, but it's an interesting Google if you're into it. So just to start wrapping up, Miss Nike, she asked me to think about some digital tools for what do I use for intercultural communication? So, you know, when I was a kid, it was by mail in the post with pen pals, but and I kind of apologize for using just English and Indonesian as an example because we have some guests from around the world here. So, but the principle is the same. So if I'm writing something in Indonesian and I want to make sure that it sounds right, because sometimes I will often get the words right, but it will sound clunky or odd because I don't know how an Indonesian person says it. This is my little strategy to hopefully, you know, avoid doing that. So I would, maybe there's like an expression that I will put into Google Translate to get the word into Indonesian. So for English learners, you can do that. Put your phrase into Google Translate and get the English version. But then flip it back around the other way and check that result, because Google isn't perfect. Google Translate doesn't pick up everything. So just make sure that when you translate the first result back into your language, that, you know, it still makes sense and it's not, you know, broken language. So that gets you through like most challenges, I think, but depending on the context, you know, I like to then use that phrase that I've pulled out of Google Translate, put it in the like the close quotes, and Google it and see how many results, you know, you get on Google, and see if there's like actual, like, see how common it is and the context in which that phrase is used. You might have a couple of different ways of saying something and you want to see which way is the best way to say that. Put them both in and just check the kinds of web pages that are coming up or how many results you get to get a bit of an indication. So I really hope that's helpful. Some more digital tools with talking to people in English online and using digitally. So I spoke about language bots. I love using the phonetic alphabet, which is this little box down here. So you can just, especially with some of the hard sounds in English, like S and F can sound the same. So, you know, for my surname, I say S for Sierra, you know, O for Oscar, and that can help, yeah, reduce some misunderstandings. You might also know about this website, the Time and Date website, which has an international meeting planner. It's where you can put in your time zones if you're having a meeting with someone overseas, and it will, as you can see with like the green lines, it'll tell you, you know, what are the most appropriate hours of the day to schedule that meeting. So, you know, currently it is 2:20 in the afternoon, whereas it's 20 past 10 for our friends in Banyumas. Google Maps and Street View can also be handy. I've used that when I've had to interview people. When I was in country in Southeast Asia and had to find somewhere to interview people, I found like the nearest Starbucks and saw it on Google Maps and went, right, that's exactly where it is. I could check out Street View and, you know, see what buildings it's near. So on the day you can just turn up and you can even explain to your friend how to find the place. And yeah, check the KBBI or your National Dictionary, which I've mentioned. I think all right, 2 more slides. So some tips for communicating with other people. Use short sentences because you're less likely to have confusion or misunderstanding. Simple sentences, simple words. It's really okay to just ask and repeat the message or repeat yourself in the conversation just to check that the other person got the right message. Don't be scared and just have a go. You know, it's all totally fine, and don't worry about mistakes. And people will understand you anyway, so it's totally fine. I put this meme on the side, which is important, I think, in this sense, where this is Cristiano Ronaldo, for any soccer fans out there, and a Japanese fan was trying to speak in Portuguese to him, and you know, he's still learning Portuguese, and the audience laughed at him, and he's actually gone, no, you know what? You know, he's doing a great job. He's actually, it's pretty good. So he's like, no, it's like really recognize the effort that the guy was doing. So I think it was a nice, successful outcome. So, and people are going to be fine. So in conclusion, to wrap it up, Australia's very diverse. There's a lot of different people. And like Indonesia, there's a lot of diversity between regions and people, you know, ages, the demographics. So for me, I think it's hard to talk about one single culture, but I'm open to, seeing what everyone else's perspectives are. Technology is growing all sorts of really interesting opportunities to communicate around the world. And these are my experiences, and you might have other views. So I will leave it there. How's that for time, Nike? And if you have any questions,
Yeah.
Can I have the question, please?
Okay, thank you for your such informative.
Can I have a question, please?
And then before we start the session of question and answer, we would like to take a bit break and move to interactive quiz with the most and only Mr. Rafi. So after that, then I will take at least 3 questions from the participants to ask Mr. Alison. After this break, okay?
Dia kan rata begini semua, warna kulitnya sini semua.
Does that sound okay? I'll just put question Almost.
Okay, halo, selamat pagi semua. Good morning and also good afternoon to our friends from overseas. Tadi sudah disebutkan ya oleh Miss Nika, ketemu dulu dengan saya nih, perkenalan, nama saya Raffi. Dan sekarang kita akan masuk ke salah satu sesi yang mana, ya kita break-break dikit dulu lah ya. Oke, tadi udah dibilang juga namanya apa? It's time to quiz, interactive quiz. Ya, suaranya mana? Wow! Ya, kita kedatangan tamu di sini. We have a lot of guests in here, sorry. Sebelum kita mulai, sebelumnya saya ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada seluruh tamu undangan yang sudah hadir ya, peserta-peserta terutama, dan juga our honorable guest from dari mana tadi? Filipina, Thailand, and also Vietnam, and also our the most amazing speaker today, Miss Allison. Hello, Miss Allison. Oke. Sebelum kita lanjut nih, tadi udah ada pemberitahuan kalau kita akan ada kuis. Ya, kita bakal take a break dulu, dan ya kita tahu tadi materinya sangat bagus dan juga informatif ya, dan nanti akan ada sesi tanya jawab setelah ini. Jadi buat kalian yang mau tanya-tanya bisa di-keep dulu pertanyaannya dan nanti bakal ditanyain di sesi selanjutnya. Oke. Akan ada hadiah nih sebetulnya buat para pemenang. Mau tahu hadiahnya berapa? Yaitu totalnya Rp300.000 untuk 3 orang pemenang, dan hadiah ini disponsori oleh Yayasan Pendidikan Dwi Puspita. Oke, hadiahnya berupa e-wallet. Jadi buat kalian yang sekarang standby nih, bener-bener pantengin layarnya, jangan sampai miss dikit, ngeleng dikit nih, jangan ya, karena kalian bakal kehilangan kesempatan untuk mendapatkan hadiahnya. Jadi langsung aja, tidak berlama-lama lagi. Pertanyaan pertama. Oh iya. Pertanyaan ini, kuis ini hanya untuk peserta dari Indonesia. Yang pertama, aku selalu berada di atas presiden dan menteri, tapi aku tidak punya jabatan dalam tatanan pemerintahan. Siapakah aku? Oke, buat yang mau jawab bisa kasih emoticon answer hand, nanti bakal saya lihat. Oke, ada yang sudah jawab belum ya? Oh, ada satu itu, Ibu
Mahasiswa.
Atau Mbak ini? Halo Mbak Isnain.
Ini hak UPA.
Ya.
Lalu setelah itu nama Maruli.
Kenapa tadi aku selalu berada di atas presiden dan menteri, tapi aku dalam pemerintahan. Siapakah aku?
Rakyat.
Tapi supir dulu ya, supir dulu.
Rakyat.
Ya, sebetulnya kalau dalam tatanan betul ya, tapi mohon maaf, ini salah. Oke, ada yang lain yang bisa jawab? Oke, Venda.
Mahasiswa, mahasiswa.
Coba di-unmute dulu, oke?
Peci.
Oh? Ya, betul. Jawabannya adalah peci. Jadi buat Mbak Venda mendapatkan Rp100.000 e-wallet. Jangan lupa nanti dikontak untuk panitia ya. Jadi siapa yang ada di atas peci tapi di atas presiden dan menteri tapi tidak punya jabatan itu adalah peci. Oke, lanjut ke pertanyaan kedua. Apa yang dimiliki oleh gajah tetapi tidak dimiliki oleh yang lainnya?
Belalai.
Itu udah umum, ada lagi. Tapi kan selain gajah, ada juga yang punya belalai. Tapir misalnya.
Saya.
Oke, raisennya mana? Raisennya mana? Coba raisen dulu.
Sudah. Saya sudah.
Oh,
anak
ya?
gajah.
Siapa ini yang jawab?
Anak gajah, Lina Isnain.
Iya boleh, Mbak Isnain. Betul, jawabannya adalah anak gajah. Karena anak gajah cuma punya nanti akan dikontak oleh panitia. Oke. Gimana ya? Oke, satu lagi nih ya, terakhir. Pemain sepak bola di Indonesia dengan berat badan teringan hanya 3 kg. Siapakah dia? Pemain sepak bola dengan berat badan teringan di Indonesia hanya dengan 3 kg.
Bolanya.
Raisennya.
Sudah.
Oke, siapa tadi namanya?
Bolanya.
Dulu. On cam dulu boleh. Jangan dimatiin karena saya nggak bisa lihat mukanya yang ganteng dan cantik ini ya. Ya tadi yang jawab siapa, bisa on cam terlebih dahulu? Oke, kita coba oper ke yang lain kalau begitu ya. Coba siapa yang udah raise hand? Oh, tadi udah nongol ya? Mbak
Sudah.
Asa?
Iya.
Oh iya, tadi apa nggak jawabannya?
Bola.
Sayang
Bolanya.
sekali jawabannya salah.
Sepatu.
Yang lain boleh dicoba, oke? Yang lain, siapa yang mau jawab? Ada 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Bambang tabung gas. Babang tabung gas.
Aduh, jangan jawab dulu dong kalau misalnya belum disuruh. Udah ketahuan ya jawabannya Bambang tabung gas ya, tapi nggak ada yang dapat ya. Jadi buat kalian jangan terlalu ngegas dulu, kita akan pelan-pelan ya. Soalnya kalau misalnya ngegas, ini nggak bisa ngeliat nih siapa yang ngomong, siapa yang ini ya. Oke, kalau gitu ternyata berhubung waktunya sudah habis, kuis interaktifnya sampai di sini dulu. Saya Raffi pamit undur diri dan maaf, saya Raffi pamit undur diri. Kita ketemu lagi next time, nggak tahu kapan ya. Dan kita lanjut ke next Q&A session oleh Miss Nika.
Selamat datang di Universitas Harapan Bangsa. Ini dia prodi-prodinya. Yuk kita lihat fakultas kesehatannya. Nyaman banget di sini. Universitas Harapan Bangsa juga ada Fakultas Ilmu Sosial loh. Buat kalian yang demen hal-hal berbau teknologi, yuk gabung di Fakultas Sains dan Teknologi. Kembangkan minat dan bakatmu di sini. Gabung sekarang juga di Universitas Harapan Bangsa. Info lebih lanjut kunjungi websitenya ya.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Raffi, for the interactive quiz. That was very fun, yeah? There's a lot of questions. Okay, now we move on to the next session about cancer and answer session. So I'm going to take one questions and two questions that can ask directly to Alison. I already got one questions here. Okay, Alison, can you hear me? Alison?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I will read the questions from the participants. Here is the first one. It is from Suparto. He's from Gunadarma University. He's asking about wondering that aside from changing of purchasing culture in the digital era, nowadays there might be any change with influence Australian people behavior, learning, and thinking culture in this digital era. So I mean, what Mr. Suparto is asking, since the pandemic, yeah, there's a lot of change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it affect the Australian people behavior related to learning and the thinking culture?
Excellent question. Thank you, Nika, and thank you, Suparto from Gunadarma Uni. So I can talk about behavior from the pandemic, and maybe there's a bit of similarity in your country too. But in Australia, we have recently gone through the period of many vaccinations, and there's now an opening of restrictions around Australia. But as a result, the disease has become quite prevalent. So from a behavior perspective, it means that everybody is staying at home as a result. And because the pandemic is affecting some people, like in transport and supermarkets a lot, it means that there's a lot of shortages, and maybe a similar situation with you. But in terms of behavior for the COVID pandemic, there's definitely like a voluntary kind of restrictions, even though we're free to go out, nobody really wants to at the moment. But I think you also asked about like online learning and how the attitudes are changing. So there's a lot of initiatives that have been put in place since the pandemic has kind of happened, where state and territory governments, so maybe like your provinces, like your Kabupaten kind of regions, are providing like discounted or free online learning for, at your vocational or university areas. So there's definitely many people who might not be able to work, or they've become unemployed as a result of the pandemic, and are finding, there's opportunity to study as well. Does that answer your question, Pop?
Yes, I think quite it is answering his questions about the changing behavior, because every situation will change part of this country, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for answering that. Now moving on to the next questions. If you like to ask the question directly to Ms. Allison, please raise your hand first, and then I will choose. We have Mr. Muhammad Arifin.
Yes.
Yeah.
My name is. Let me introduce myself first. I'm a student. My name is Muhammad Arifin. I'm a student of at Hasanuddin University. My major is architects. I have a question to Miss Alison. How are you, Miss Alison?
Very well. How are you doing?
Very good. I do have a nephew. Probably my question not really related, but is connected with the topic. I have nephew want to go to Australia to continue their school. He asked me but he used read the journal, not journal, somewhere. He asked me about what is cultural shock. I don't know how to pronounce, but cultural shock, like and then homesick. What are they, and how to prepare to handle about those situations? Cultural shock and then homesick. Thank you, Miss Alison. I give back to moderator.
Cultural shock, yeah. Terima kasih, matur nuwun, Muhammad Arifin. Good question. And like, I think for all of us who have moved out of home, it's a once in a lifetime experience, and you definitely can feel the culture shock and homesickness. So for the homesickness, I think, we're very fortunate at the moment to have lots of technologies available to talk to each other. So I would say set up a weekly or daily, Skype or Facebook or, whichever messaging platform you want, or Zoom even is pretty good. And, keep the communication happening. I think that's really, really helpful. Like I've had some friends and family where maybe I used to have I would call them, every couple of weeks, and the conversation might be a couple of hours, but it was kind of quite a long time to be talking. And during the pandemic, because a lot of us are at home and, not doing a whole lot, we've changed that to just talk whenever, like daily, and just go, hey, how are you? 5 minutes, or if I'm driving, I try to use those kind of opportunities and spare bits of time to reach out. So cultural shock is a really good one too, because it works both ways. I've read and experienced a bit when you come back home, even you get reverse culture shock, because by the time you acclimatize and oh yeah, this is how the other country is, that's just how it works and how life is here, and then you often find the Australian culture can be really different. You go, wow, I never noticed Australians did that, or they're so loud, or so I think there's quite a lot of cultures, as I mentioned, in Australia. There's a lot of Indonesian people, which is fantastic. So there are lots of local groups and formal and informal that you can just hang out with, I think. So that would be helpful. And you can go, oh god, there's Australians, they're so annoying when they do whatever. And just as for an example, I've got a WhatsApp group that's based in Canberra, and there's a lot of local men and women who do Indonesian cooking, and it's just, it's selling it on for on the side kind of thing, and it's really great. So there's definitely Indonesian restaurants and local people just making Indonesian food, which is amazing. So I hope that answers your question. And good luck to your nephew.
Thank you, thank you. And how about the other one, homesick? How to handle it?
Oh,
and what is the homesick?
I think keep up the communication and talk every day. And if there are things that you like to do back home, like a hobby or that kind of thing, try and find that in the other country. If it's Australia, I'm sure there's a similar kind of sport or hobby. So you have like that decompression, you can, relax after a day's work. And if he's going over as like a uni student, a university student, when the school term starts, there's going to be all sorts of other people in exactly the same kind of situation. So you definitely won't be the only one, and there's really great opportunity to make friends and meet people. A little bit harder now with COVID, actually, now that I've said that, but there are also organizations that want to make sure everyone is okay when they do study.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Sama-sama.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Muhammad Arifin, for the interesting questions. And for the next questions, don't forget to raise your hand so you can ask directly to Mrs. Allison. And it will be one more questions. It will from...
Yes, Ms. Putri. I'm Cerah Iskradono.
Hi, Pak. Apa kabar?
Hello. Yeah.
Okay, please.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Allison's sharings and experience is very interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you stayed a lot in Indonesia, and hope you love Indonesia more. I've ever been to Australia too when I was sent by Garuda Indonesia to study in Qantas. Study Boeing 747, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
yeah. Mrs. Allison, I would like to ask you two questions, yeah. First, what is your point of view about Indonesian culture? What is the good sides and bad sides? And how to improve it so we really can be an international people, yeah. Global people, can be accepted as a global people. That is my first question. And the second question is, what do you think about the human resources of Indonesia? Yeah, because we have to learn a lot. Yeah, in this digital era, we must keep up with the technology or something like that. Yeah, sometimes so become one of the handicaps, yeah, for our religion. Yeah, sometimes we cannot move very fast. Yeah. What do you think about that, Mrs. Allison? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Chera. That's really good questions, and thanks for taking the time to listen and ask the questions. So on your first one, what's my perspective on Indonesian culture? That's really easy because I love it. It's great. All of the different cultures are really interesting and great. But I do take note that, yeah, how can you improve culture? Not really for me to say, I don't think. Like, I'm not, like I said at the start, I'm not representing all of Australian culture. I'm just one person. So this is my best guess. So I feel like it's really hard for me to kind of comment on another country's culture. And like, plus Indonesia is amazing. And there's so many great things with batik and the food and the dancing and culture. So yeah, I feel like it's not my place to say, unfortunately. But I really like your second question on like keeping up with the like technological resources. And what I'm going to say is like the Indonesian universities put Australians to shame with how amazing and slick the online marketing tools and use of technology is, because Australia, I won't say all of them because there's some great unis, but as an example for today, like the amazing videos and the transition shots and just the manner in which everything is organized is like really, really impressive. And yeah, a lot of, if I was doing a lecture or something in Australia, often it's just you turn up and you might get introduced, or you just go, hey, I'm Alison, do your talk and then leave. So it's definitely doing some great stuff with the technology and online presence. Online presence is the word that I meant to say. In terms of religion as a handicap, that's another tough one, and a bit of a hard one for me to kind of talk to. I think that all religions, the religion has a purpose in society, and all religions have things that people agree with and things that other people don't agree with. So I think Indonesia is doing a pretty good job in terms of you've got quite a a very cosmopolitan and multi trying to think, like you've got the Pancasila and has some very inclusive, and I think there's a lot of elements that's quite inclusive and recognized throughout Indonesia. But yeah, I'm not a really huge expert in kind of religion or anything like that, so I think it's probably something for Indonesia to deal with. But honestly, yeah, Indonesian culture is amazing, and the people I met, everyone is so friendly and lovely. Thanks so much for the question.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Alison. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Cerah Iskradono. Okay, we have one additional last questions. I would like to ask from Donapa, Dr. Donapa. Oh, sorry, Antana.
I see my second half question. Can I pass to her? She already raised her hand. Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning from Thailand.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Thipawan Wenkeo. I am nickname is Eve, and my friend is me and my friend I have any question for you. I want to know about technique or how to study, how to learn about different culture when you go to abroad. You have any technique or how to?
Yeah, fantastic question, and it's really hard. So I'll give you the Indonesian example because of my experience, but I think it might apply as well. So throughout my life, what's taught in Australian schools and universities is standard Bahasa Indonesia. And so that's pretty different to, you know, what's spoken on the streets. And so what happened is, you know, I focused on Bahasa Indonesia, the formal standard Indonesian, and then, you know, I still struggle to speak naturally as a, you know, in Indonesian. So I think I sound like I'm, you know, Bapak Jokowi, or like I'm a minister or something, because it's very formal, and I'm trying to fix that. And it's really hard because there's so many different types of accents and regional languages that influence Indonesian. And I've tried watching Sinetron. I've tried watching, you know, what's that TV show called? Sidul. For those of you know Sidul, he's the guy that speaks Betawi in Jakarta, around the Jakarta area, and that kind of thing. So I use YouTube a fair bit, and it's really hard. I just try to get a YouTube video because you'll have a random Australian or someone talking, and I slow it down a whole lot. And when I, you know, if I hear something that's, I understand what it meant, but maybe I wouldn't say it that way because I'm going English to Indonesian in my head. So I like, my words come out sounding funny. So, you know, I get a little book and I write down, you know, if I hear a phrase that is the natural way to say it, and try and remember that. So for technology, there's some really great flashcard applications you can use for learning languages. Maybe you know them. I used to do, like, you know, the flashcards, they're about this big, and they have like the hard copy ones. So I have heaps of those, and I used to use that as my, you know, my language learning tool, which they're good, but I think you can't mix them up. You can't shuffle them so well, and I would just be like, and there's only so much your brain can like absorb every day. So I would go like 20 words max for me a day, and even then I'll probably forget a few words, you know, in the next week if I don't keep checking it out. There's some other online apps. One is called Anki Droid. You might have heard about it. It's for an Android phone. It's really customizable. It's actually too customizable for me because you can set up all sorts of things, but it's called, Anki Droid. The one that I like to use is an application on, I think it's got it. Yeah, it's on phone as well. It's called Cran, CRAN. And you can use the free version, and you can just, you know, if you're standing in line, you can just go, and it'll shuffle them and that kind of thing. Yeah, but for culture, I just get a book and watch some YouTube, and you can go, oh, that's weird that the Australians are doing that. And just, make a note. You can just keep a diary. Is there anything in particular I can help you with?
Thank you very much for sharing your experience.
Yes, that's so amazing.
Thank you.
And I have one more question.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation, Dr. Alison. As you mentioned that for Australian like to be on time, what I am wondering to know that what happened or how do you feel if I late?
I see. I've got to give you there is a
late. How do you feel?
Yeah. Oh, you know, it's bad. So I completely understand. Transport is a beast that you can't control. Like, if there's a traffic jam, there's a traffic jam, and sometimes, you know, this kind of stuff happens. But you know, sometimes it's just life, and like a lot of Australians will be fine with it. It's just when I've had, you know, maybe I've had a boss or a senior executive come over to a meeting, and you know, you can see it's, oh, we should have started by now, and the other person isn't there. I just kind of go, you know what, it's fine. It's like, don't worry. It's, you know, it's just life. So it's, or maybe it's like it's a cultural difference. Like I think Nika, I think the Indonesian phrase is like jam karet or something like that. It's like rubber time. But
yes, you pronounced it right. Jam karet.
Yeah, but having said that, there are lazy Australians who are late, and there's Indonesians who are on time, and people from other countries who are on time. So, no, if they're a professional, they're not going to get angry and go, "Why are you late?" It'll be fine.
Just late.
Yeah, most people are fine.
But for time people sometimes we still relax, but like you, that is fine if you have the reasonable late.
Yeah. Or if you have their number, just send them a WhatsApp and go, "Oh, sorry, this is happening," and because that's all happening to us as well.
Thank you much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Donapa from Thailand. Okay, I think it's a wrap. That's all from the question and answer sessions. I'm very happy for the interesting questions, and the enthusiastic is very positive. Yeah, the energy is feel right here, although all of you in front of the camera talking, but I can feel the energy. Okay, next, before I close this session, we will move to the presentation of recognition from the Dean of Social Science Faculty, from Pak Fizi or Mr. Alfizi to Alison.
Aww.
Okay, Pak Fizi, are you here? I will give the screen and the floor to you, so please deliver something to Mrs. Allison. You're still mute.
Okay, thank you, Miss. Thank you very much, Miss Allison, for sharing knowledge about understanding intercultural komunikasi this year. Thank you.
Sama-sama, Pak. Terima kasih banyak. Maybe next time we will meet in person one day.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Pak Fizi. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we finally come to the end of this seminar. Before I close this Studium General, I would like to take a conclusion from what the speaker has represented, that we are not only one culture. So we need to learn and adapt with another culture so we can go to other countries and feel the diversity. So you can learn and adapt new behavior. So that's all from me. And I see you again on the next Studium General. Thank you.
very much, Mrs. Nika. Well, ladies and gentlemen, these are the agendas we have presented to you today. As we have finished the event, so all of you don't forget to fill the attendance. And thank you very much for your attention and making time in your schedules to join us here today. I wish you all a pleasant day. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Seperti hari biasanya, Bapak selalu bisa kuandalkan. Dia seseorang yang selalu ada di dalam hidupku. Walaupun waktu terus berpacu, dia selalu mendukung untuk mewujudkan impianku.
Bapak!
Dek, ini buat Bapak.
Iya, Pak. Biar Bapak tetap sehat.
Enak.
Oh iya, Pak.
Kini, kita semua bisa hidup lebih sehat. Apa yang kita lakukan dapat membuat semua orang menjadi semangat. Tersenyum lebar untuk kita. Cintai produk lokal, anak bangsa.
Aku Stefanus Celeni, mahasiswa Universitas Harapan Bangsa. Teman-temanku berasal dari berbagai daerah di penjuru Nusantara. Kami memang berbeda agama, suku, dan budaya. Namun kami adalah satu. Kami semua Indonesia.
Aku Indonesia. Aku Harapan Bangsa.
I think it's over. Nice to see everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye, see you.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. And
Yep.
Thank you, Donapan. Thank you, everyone.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you next time. Maybe we be arranged to be the host and invite you to next time. I hope so.
I will join it, Mr. Donapan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having this amazing event. I hope that you have a great day, everyone, and nice to know you. Bye-bye.